Welcome to the Inner Sanctum. We're a podcast talking about Kiss's unofficial archive. Today we're going to be talking about...
Yeah. Today we're a show about unofficial archives, and today we're talking about an official show. But I guess last time we talked about a semi-official show as well too. But the show that we chose for today's episode is Tiger Stadium, June 28th, 1996. The tour opening of the hugely successful reunion tour. But the second show, there was that warm-up show at the Weenie Roast a couple days earlier. Well, like almost 2 weeks earlier, June 15th. We're actually recording this, right around the anniversary of it. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show, because there's a lot to talk about as far as the history of the show, the officially released versions of the show, and additional unofficial versions that leaked out prior to this. But let's talk a little bit about what was going on with the band at this time. This was obviously the very first show that kicked off the hugely successful reunion tour in 96-97. Now, I know you were set to see the very last show in Finsbury Park in 97. Were you aware of this even happening? Of this show even happening?
Oh, yeah.
Was your fandom was locked into this?
Oh, yeah. I was on AOL and CompuServe, so in the forums there, and Rec Music Alt Kiss, whatever it was. I always get it backwards. It was a big deal, even living in Scotland at the time. Or actually, no, I wasn't in Scotland, because if it was Finsbury Park, I was down near Wales, living just outside of there, Ross-on-Wye, and that's where my car broke down when I left our rented house to go to London for Finsbury Park. So, yeah, I was fully in. I was following this tour like mad because I wasn't there. And, by the time Finsbury Park came around, I'd already screwed up seeing them when they were there in November 96. So,
yeah, it was November 96. And then they came back in April or May of 97, right? Because they were doing all those other shows. They were doing like Donning. They were doing Rock and Park and Rock am Ring in Germany. They did another European tour in 97 as well.
Yeah, that was all May, June, July was the Euro Festival tours, a few smaller venues, a couple of places that had been missed in November. And of course, it had been Donington the previous summer for the first big festival outing. So, no, it was an exciting time. It was a depressing time. I was still getting over the hump of Eric and Bruce's departure from the group. So I was kind of caught between two worlds, the worlds of the Kiss that I had known and the Kiss that I'd never known.
Right. I was just watching today, I was watching the Q&A session from the Kiss Convention Tour in Detroit, July 22nd, 95. And somebody actually said, guys, don't get back Ace and Peter. Don't do a reunion. We love this band. Sorry to say, I never loved that band. I got into them. I was a second string Kiss fan. I said this many, many times. There was nobody my age, and I mean 9, 10, 11, and 95, 96, 97, that was into the band like I was. Didn't have young fans towards the late 80s, early 90s, because they weren't marketing themselves to younger fans. You had your teenagers, your early 20s. That's the group that they were marketing themselves to. And you didn't have any young fans, but I was the young fan because I was looking back at the cartoon history of the band, the comic books, Kiss Meets a Fan, and the makeup. That's when I got into the band. But I just remember going to events around this time, 96, 97, 98, even up to 99. There just wasn't a demographic of my age Kiss fans. There just wasn't. There's obviously were Kiss fans much older than me, and then now there's Kiss fans younger than me, and Kiss fans even younger than that. But at the time when this was happening, I was like alone. I didn't know anybody else my age that liked Kiss anywhere. But what I remember about this show is, of course, I couldn't go. I was living in New Jersey at the time, and they did a special event at the Hard Rock Casino in Las Vegas, and it was aired in between episodes of The Simpsons. So Fox did a huge thing because they were giving away tickets for Tiger Stadium. And I always remember Paul kicking open this glass case and showing the tickets and saying, like, you want them. and I did want them. I was a fan at this point. I knew that they were getting back together. I'd seen them on the Grammys by accident, and then I saw them on the MTV Movie Awards. But I knew their Unitro hype had me by June of '96. So I wanted to go. I obviously couldn't. Being a kid, I was 10 years old. 10 years old, 10 or 11. I don't remember. Um, when this happened, and I knew that I could not get from New Jersey to Detroit. I understood that people flew places. I understood all that stuff, but I thought that, oh, the band is going to come to you. I Traveling to see something like that was completely out of the question for a kid. I didn't even think that you could even do that because what did I know? Years later, I'd be going to other countries to see the band. But at the time, I knew that I was not going to be in Detroit. I certainly wasn't going to fly there. Certainly wasn't going to drive there. So I thought that if I win tickets, wow, if I win these tickets, I have to go. I didn't win them, but I do remember them being on Fox, and I do remember them making a big deal about this show. And I remember that I couldn't wait for it to happen. I couldn't wait. I was so excited. I was logging on to Kiss Asylum every single day at that point, and this is my Kiss. This was a magical time for me.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting time, but for me, and again, we didn't have any of the cable channels. Whether I was in Canterbury at university, whether I was at home in Scotland or down in Ross on Wye,
Mhm.
none of that meant that I didn't see the Grammys. I didn't see the Intrepid news conference or any MTV coverage from that, where they did, interviews on multiple channels. I didn't have the newspapers. And of course, with it being Britain, there wasn't really the hype as pervasively as there was in the United States. Now, sure, music magazines did get into it because, come on, Kiss is Kiss. Kiss has impacted musicians from Joe Elliott all the way across spectrums, to the Tom Morellos. So, the impact of Kiss on the music business and on artists who've picked up an instrument because of Ace Frehley or drums because of Eric Carr or Peter Criss is just absolutely massive. So there was that hype, but it was from the fan excitement because the Americans dominated all of those online forums at that time.
Mhm.
Um, it was impossible not to get caught up on it. So it was an exciting time, and I was interested in what that first set was going to be. I didn't know anything about Weenie Roast until after the fact.
Same.
Again, it didn't mean anything to me, so why would I be following it, unless it popped up, online or someone talking about it? I was checking Kiss Asylum a lot as well at the time, and there were a couple of other sites whose names I now forget. So it was a fun time to be a Kiss fan, but like I said, also a
Kissvault.com.
sad time. Hmm?
Kissvault.com. That was one.
That was
But I
one. Just
also
495.
but I also remember. Oh yeah, Club 495. I also remember. I remember the first time I saw footage of the tour. They were on a show called Route 96, and it was shot in Boston. That summer of '96, Kiss was real hot. I couldn't go to see Madison Square Garden. I was just too young. I had an older brother at the time who went to see them at the Garden. I couldn't go. I always really wanted to, but I remember them being everywhere. I was at a sandwich shop and I bought the Entertainment Weekly magazine. I still got it. But I remember they were really hot, and I remember watching Route 96, and I thought that they were going to air a Kiss concert. They didn't. It was like little clips here and there. Nothing really. Actually, the most interesting part of it was seeing them do that blue photo session with Mark Weiss, which ended up that you can see there's little pieces of footage on that during Route 96. But I was excited. I was really, really, really excited. And I even still remember the episode of The Simpsons that was on when they were advertising this Tiger Stadium. It was Homer Palooza. Homer Palooza. I'm sorry, because it was Homer doing a music festival. That episode of The Simpsons, and I think it was the season finale of The Simpsons at that point. But I remember seeing that when it aired, and then I didn't see it for years and years and years later until I started trading clips. Um, but this show was always very special because it was the first show back, and this was this was a big deal. This was, you know, weenie roast aside, this was the real time. This was time for them to finally prove themselves and see what they could or couldn't do. So I always understood the importance of the show, and this show was always a focus in my bootleg collection. Did you ever, before we talk about all the different versions, did you ever have this show when you were collecting?
Hmm. Yeah, I had audio. And I don't know again if that was an audio. I've got the CD. I didn't bother digging it out for
Mm-hmm.
this because, there were so many other versions to
Mm-hmm.
review for
Mm-hmm.
what we're going to be talking about today. But no, I had an audio of the show, and I don't really remember much about it because I was getting so many tapes in at the time with being an active trader that it got lost because it didn't have meaning to me because the recording wasn't that great.
Mm-hmm.
So, my reunion recordings are still to this day Burning Stockholm and My House and Is Your House and From Oberhausen, both in November, December 96. So, yeah, I had it, but it wasn't a very fantastic performance.
No, it wasn't a fantastic performance at all. You could clearly hear the nerves in there. I never had it on audio. It's so funny, and that's why I thought this show was such a good idea because you were so focused more on the audio, and I was always focused so much more on the video. I didn't. I didn't get. I didn't get video of this till much, much, much later. Much, much, much later. I always wanted it, but it was like a one cam shot from all the way in the back. And I was at the time I was really hunting down multicam. So I was hunting down the Madison Square Garden shows. I was hunting down the Psycho Circus shows. I didn't get the show till much later. But what I did have is I did have an audio recording. They did a sound check and production rehearsal the day before, so I had that. Didn't sound great. You heard them running through a couple of songs here and there, so you kind of got an idea. And I got it because like, that's kind of cool. And obviously later that day, which would be the 27th, they shot some of the video for the Shout Out Loud video because they shot it there and at Tiger Stadium. So there's a clip of that that's floating around. It's kind of cool to see. One of our friends, Mark Chikini, he was there, and he says he was like peeking through the fences to see them, rehearse from like a mile away because he lives in Detroit, so he was close to it. Him and I have there's a burger place that's across the street from where Tiger Stadium used to be. We eat there every time I go up to Detroit. I'll be up there in the next couple of weeks, but Tiger Stadium isn't there anymore. So I remember every time we drive by, I'm like, man, that's where it was. That's where Tiger Stadium was. It was. He said that walking around Detroit those couple of days was like it was madness. It was probably like what it was like for us in December when we saw Kiss in Madison Square Garden for the last time. But he says it was madness. It was totally, totally, totally madness.
Just a lot cheaper.
A lot cheaper. Well, at the time, relative to there, tickets. They said tickets were $85 at the time. People were like $85, and I think the cheapest ticket that I've gotten since then is probably more than $85. But anyway, an important show to say the least. And just that intro has become very, very important because Shout Out Loud, the new video version, obviously it was a music video, and then the audio version that ended up on the Greatest Kiss compilation. So even before I had the show, I had that All Right Detroit, and that's the intro from the show. That's the very first time that they said that on that tour. So even just the intro of this show has been like forever seared in my brain because I had that video version of Shout Out Loud. It was on Greatest Kiss. It also was on the box set 2001, and then that was the video that you saw. The video that was a big deal back then. I mean, now we see the Shout Out Loud video, we've grown and roll our eyes because we've seen it so many times. But at the time, just remember, like seeing that video at that time was cool. It was so cool because you got to see the fans, you got to see the band, and the band looked great. I remember waiting on dial-up internet, downloading a QuickTime clip, not even the full video, a clip. So all you people now that can just go on YouTube and type semicolon kiss and find everything that you want, I had to wait probably 5 or 6 hours to get like a 60-second clip. The picture was probably this big, and it was all pixelated, but it was a clip of the Shout Out Loud video, and I loved it. I loved it. And it was cool. It was cool to be a Kiss fan again.
Yeah, and you have to remember, in Europe, we got the Greatest Kiss compilation at the end of '96. You guys didn't get it in the States until April '97.
Right.
So, that was a very fun thing. Again, it was here is number one. It was a new music, not new songs, but it was new music from Kiss mixed in with the greatest hits.
Mhm.
That was packaged up for the remasters that were coming, but it was still very cool. And for me, that was essentially all I had until I moved to America.
Hmm.
and Kissology came out. I didn't go back and ever get any audience or multicams of Tiger Stadium. It wasn't my focus in collecting at that time.
It
I'd,
seems
I'd already segregated myself from the reunion. I was like, I don't need any more freaking reunion shows. I never want to see or hear any of it again. And then Kissology comes out. I'm like, oh, I mean, Toledo and I think the Eddie Cannon show were
yeah,
it.
Toledo,
Um,
Columbus, Georgia, and then don't remember that MTV in Germany aired Rock Am Ring. They aired a
yeah.
nearly complete show,
And
and that
Orlando, I think it was, or Miami, Hora Prima.
yeah, hola prima, yeah, yeah, but that was only a couple songs, and it was shot from far away. But I mean, that's the coolest thing. I mean, there's that show that they taped for Rock Am Ring in Germany in May of '97. It's probably the best shot show of the reunion tour, other than Atlanta. And where is it? Is it just sitting in MTV's archives in Germany? Because I mean, there were tons of cameras shot there. There were moving cameras. It probably would have been the best shot reunion show of all time. And the version we have is the quality is okay. It's all right, but it was probably shot in it's probably shot in PAL, which is a little bit higher quality as NTSC. So it probably would have been the best thing. So I do have something that I want to show. And this goes back to Tiger Stadium, which is obviously the show we're talking about in this episode. During the Shout Out Loud music video, Shout Out Tiger Stadium, there's all these banners, and they're all homemade banners, but they ended up in the video. So a couple years ago on eBay, one of them showed up, and I got it.
Yeah, now unfold that on camera, Andrew. Unfold it.
I can't. It's giant. But there's Peter's face. So it's literally like it's like a giant sheet, and some fan probably made it with like puffy paints or whatever it is. Um, but there it is. That's it. That's one of the, and you can see it in the Shout Out Loud video. So I'll send a picture because I have it. I took a picture of it when I got it, and then I found the frame of the video that it's in. But yeah, it's cool. Tiger Stadium was cool. Tiger Stadium was always very special.
So I've got something as well. I'll just show these off while we get started. I got
Mhm.
a bunch of paperwork from a crew member who worked on the pre-production and all that going back years.
Mhm.
And just to give people a sense of the timing of getting ready for Tiger Stadium, we're going to talk a little about some of the video, I guess,
Mhm.
that happened prior to the show. But May the 31st, they checked into Airtel Plaza Hotel in Van Nuys, and that was all the crew for the production rehearsals and final musical rehearsals for the tour, which ran, according to this info update, June the 1st through the 14th. And then, of course, the 15th was the K Rock show,
Mhm. Winnie
aka
Rose.
Weenie Roast. And on the 16th, the stage gear was moved to Detroit. There were then 17th through the 24th full production rehearsals at
Cobol.
Cobo Hall, followed by setup and I guess additional production rehearsals at Tiger Stadium the 25th through the 27th, which includes that day of final rehearsals, which Mark would have been peeking through the fence at. Um,
Yes.
and then, of course, show day. And what's interesting on this schedule is June to August are the first leg of the tour. They've got Donington already on here. August the 21st through October 31st, second US leg. Europe's on there November, December. January in Southeast Asia, um, January 97. Australia, February 97. So looks like they only did Japan. They never did Southeast Asia, which I think
Mhm.
Singapore was an emerging market. Bands like Def Leppard were going out there in 96, and it was really starting to pick up. March, South America, April and May, off
Hmm.
was the original intention. Then May and June, Europe again for a summer festival, which did happen. And then they were planning on doing another, at this time anyway, they were planning on doing another summer leg, July and August in the US. And September is a big to be announced.
Hmm.
So that is what the picture looked like at the time that they were going to, before everything happened. That was the initial plan.
It's interesting that they were going to go back to the U.S. in June and July of '97.
Yeah. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Hey! All right, this is number 52, okay? Once you get out there, keep your heads, kick your ass tonight. We want to come back here in the summer. You ready? Yep. Let's go get them! Hey!
Obviously, they came back to the U.S. doing secondary markets in March and April of 97. That's where the Toledo show came from and all that stuff. And that was basically their dry run. They were taking that show to the festival circuit in Europe. That's where Paul's Flying Machine came to be and all that stuff. But it's interesting that they wouldn't have. And I have to go back and look at this. The Great Kiss on Tour, which I guess you're probably favorable to. I think the attendance at the time was taking a dip. It wasn't gangbusters like it was the summer before. It was, instead of them doing like 100% ticket sales and then some, they were doing like 80 and 90 and day of sellouts. It wasn't like a instant tickets gone anymore. So I think they did the right move by not doing another US leg, because possibly it wouldn't have been as successful as the summer of 96 run was. Because summer 96 run, I mean, it was basically that summer of 96 is why we got Kiss for the next 25 years, was because of that summer. But it's interesting to see how quickly that fizzled out, and they weren't doing multiple nights in cities. Look at what they were doing, the B markets that they were doing at that time. So there were no other stadium shows on the U.S. stadium runs on this tour.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, even by July 17th, and this one's on you, Ohio, Dayton, was their first non-sold out date of the reunion. It's kind of shocking to think about that. And then Canada. It was generally 100% all the way through September, and after that it starts dropping. Lost Cities, Lost Cities was very hit and miss. They were
very
playing 6,000. Yeah, they were doing 6,000 seaters in some cases. So that summer though, that was the summer of Kiss. Summer of '96 is where it's at, and Tiger Stadium is the start of a really great time, especially for people who are fans in the 70s who were getting to relive and really see if Kiss still lived up to that image that they had in their memory from their experience in their youth. That must have been amazing for those people.
It was incredible. So right before the tour took off, You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best came out. That was June 25th. 96 is when that came out, and that was literally just a way for them to get merch in more Kiss merch into the store. You had all these magazines coming out, all this, and I believe, that's exactly what I thought. The back cover of all these magazines was You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best, which we know there's a long history of this, what they wanted it to be, and then ultimately what it ended up being. And we all know that those 4 tracks are not vintage tracks; they are re-recordings.
No, I was just doing some translations of interviews today for another project, and I've got Ace talking about sweetening the guitar tracks.
Sweetening. What he means by sweetening is completely re-recording them from nothing. There were rumors at the time saying that the record company didn't want to pay what Kiss wanted, which was $1 million per track, in order to include unreleased tracks on this album. So essentially, Universal, or whatever they were called at the time, Mercury Polygram, would have to pay Kissco $1 million, so $4 million to get those new tracks on there. And, they didn't even know if the tour was going to be a success at that point while the album was coming out. So, it is what it is. And who knows, maybe they were never going to put legitimate vintage tracks on there. Who knows? But I can tell you, those are not vintage tracks, 110%. So, but anyway, I still went out and bought it because I still wanted it. I was excited. I thought the CD cover was great, and it just got me excited knowing that this band was gonna, be on the road again. So let's talk about Tiger Stadium. What's that?
Who was it that did the bonus CD? That if you pre-ordered You Wanted the Best, you got a CD, which did have
Blockbuster.
Blockbuster.
Yeah,
Blockbuster greeting. So they did go into the studio.
I have it somewhere. I can't tell you where I have it. It's probably stuck in between 2 books, but I have it somewhere. Somebody gave it to me. I have no idea where it is right now. It had a greeting, and then it had New York Groove live from Sydney, Australia, 1980. And at that time, it was the only official track to contain Eric Carr on the drums live.
The second.
Oh, Heaven's on Fire, because that was the B-side for that single. Okay, so that was a live track too in Europe. So the first U.S. official release.
Okay. So other notable videos from the period leading up to Tiger Stadium. Let's just go through some of those. The Grammys, obviously.
Yeah, so you have the Grammys. We had the MTV Movie Awards, Kiss presented on there. I don't know what Peter did his makeup that night. He was like eating both of his whiskers. I'm not sure what was going on there. But you also had, that was hitting fan circles at this time, was this compilation video that was shown prior to the band taking the stage at the Grammys. This was a hot item that was going on. It was literally just snippets of stuff that we already had, but we didn't have it in that order, and we wanted it in that order. But I do remember that was a hot item that was being traded at the time, because some fans, they just set up video cameras and they just taped the Intrepid reel right off the screen they projected. But it was a big deal to get, oh my God, we got a real actual transfer of that video. Again, we had this stuff, but just not in that order. So that was being traded at the time. And even the actual press conference was being heavily traded at that time too. A lot of press was there. They said it was going on around the internet. I'm not sure what they meant by that, because they weren't streaming videos, so maybe it was tech. I don't know. I wasn't up on the net at that time.
Yeah, I don't think anything streamed effectively at that time. Mm-hmm. There was a videotape that was issued promotionally with a sampler. It had snippets from the press conference, Conan's introduction of them, the tour of the Kiss museum that they had on the Intrepid, along with some interview clips during the Kiss Museum with the band, and then also some segments from the VH1 interview with AJ Hammer. Mm-hmm. So it was all, and there was a new music video for Rock and Roll All Night with all the clips.
Was it new, or was it just Kiss Exposed?
You're asking the wrong person, because I listened to videos.
I got to go look back at that, because I think it might have just been Kiss Exposed that they were doing at the time. Because
it could well be, because it does have, again, the Americana, the Brazil footage and all that, and Australia
probably
quite heavily featured. So it probably is. I lost my Exposed tape years ago. So
they issued that, just getting off topic a little bit, they issued that Rock and Roll Night video to the wide press when Exposed came out. So it was probably that. But I do remember. It was everywhere. From Conan, from ETV. A lot of places were showing little blips and bops and all kinds of stuff about that press conference. So it was hot, because it was the first time you got to see the band in makeup. Aside from
and the press conference is really good.
Yeah,
it's really entertaining, and it's really mandatory viewing, because it's the beginning. It's the first step on the road to Tiger Stadium.
The best version, or it's not fully complete, unfortunately, but there's a really good clip that Sixth Grade Films shot. It was the guys that did the Kiss Loves You documentary. They shot the reunion tour on film, if you can believe it or not. It's actually on YouTube, so go check that out. It's not the whole thing. It is a good part of it, but I always thought that was cool. Clips from the reunion tour ended up everywhere, and even on the Second Coming. So it was very, very cool. And how cool would it have been to have been there on the Intrepid to see that happen? So yeah, very, very, very cool. So other notable programs, I don't really know. There was just a ton of press for that. There was a ton of press for the press conference, and then again, ton of press for Tiger Stadium. Ton.
Yeah, they were through the trades, in the newspapers. Whenever the initial run of dates were announced on the 16th, I believe, of April. What's my press release say? I won't be able to find it,
because this magazine, this official magazine, came out April '96.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just see, because they listed a bunch of dates. So yeah, so their dates went through June to October. And it's funny, like a lot of the multiple nights are not listed here yet.
Yeah, so here's the I'll punch this in. This is the the press release from Mercury with the initial run of dates, and it ran. This only lists June the 28th through July the 31st.
And how many nights at the Garden do they list? Is it only two?
Two.
Yeah, only two.
And
Which turned
then
out to be four.
on this other itinerary, this is the May the 17th itinerary, has four. No, this is, I'm sorry. I'm not wearing my glasses. This is June the 11th. They'd gone to 4 dates at Madison Square Garden by then. And this goes
They were
through,
like almost immediate sellouts.
Yeah, it says very tentative, subject to change. Everything's subject to change. So,
well,
it's very cool.
Huge. It was huge. So, all right. Well, let's get to the meat and potatoes. Let's talk about Tiger Stadium. We're going to talk about two notable versions of the show. There's the complete show, which is that fan shot version, shot from all the way back. But it gives you kind of a look at the grand scale of what the production was at this time, which this production was much bigger here than it would have been when it went into the arenas. It had 2 extra screens on the side of the stage, so you had those little levitating platforms on the either side of the stage, and there were screens behind those, which those never made an appearance again after Tiger Stadium. And then obviously the inflatables were set up here too, which I always loved seeing those things. I never saw them back then, and I would have lost my mind if I saw them back then. I really would have. I saw the Destroyer ones during the Last Kiss in 2000, but I never saw the Love Gun ones. I always wanted to see those. I never did. So, if anybody's any pictures, please send me. I love looking at those. Those are so cool to look at. So you had that, and I don't know when this came out, but I've had this forever, and I'm talking about I've had this for literally 20 years, where it was a VHS tape that definitely probably is better quality somewhere. It's definitely at least second or third generation VHS tape, but it's all the MTV footage that MTV would have shot for this. This is also up on YouTube. You can see it on YouTube. But I had this. This was like one of those VHS tapes. It was called like the compilation version of Tiger Stadium, and had various footage. Fans before the show just walking around, and for some reason all the men are shirtless. I understand it was a summer day, but come on, man, come on. So everybody's shirtless, but you could feel the excitement. There's a shot of the billboard outside. It says Tiger Stadium Kiss tonight, sold out. Then there was like a couple of clips of the merch stand, and it's funny because there's not a lot of merch that was on sale at this Tiger Stadium show, which unheard of now. So much merch that was available on the following tours. But that just goes to show you they didn't know how much of a success this was going to be. So obviously there was a tour book, a couple of shirts. There was a Kiss Army bag, which didn't appear after Tiger Stadium. So I have one of those. But just a couple things, the silly wine, just silliness. Anyway, so after we see all that stuff, then we see there's a small pro shot section, which we'll talk about in a little bit. That's 2, 4, 6, 7 songs. But then there's also raw empty footage shot from the pit, where we see Deuce, King of the Nighttime World, and then we see MTV clips being shot from the crowd. We see Shout Out Loud, and then we see Gene's solo. When was the first time you saw this footage, if you remember?
Only a few years ago. Yeah. Again, with not being the video collector, I never went after it until it came to me in a storage locker find. So it was just one of those things that I didn't go chasing it. And you raised a really good point about the audience video. Again, reiterating that I'm an audio guy who's listened to this show primarily as the audience bootleg that circulated on the tape trading circuit until the partial Kissology Pro Shot came out. And watching that, I'm like, this is unimpressive. This is not bombastic. Then you watch the audience version, and you get a different view of the show. You're watching the same show through 2 different lenses, literally. And it really does. I mean, I found the audience shot one to be actually very endearing because it harkened back to a more kind of naive, honest time before kind of the recording of shows became big business by bootleggers, and then later by the bands themselves when they were doing the instant lives and all that rubbish.
Mhm.
So just watching this nicely framed audience shot, as imperfect as it was for the age and the multi-generational factors that come into play, you see, oh, there's inflatables, there's the screens, oh, there's the flames and the fireworks, which you
Mhm.
can barely hear on the Kissology. They're not coming through that mix that is the audio. So I'm sitting here. I've got the pyro cue sheet as well from the show,
Mhm.
and I'm like, oh, there's a concussion there. Well, I'm not feeling it. I'm like, Andrew, put some booms in it. It's
Um,
just not there. But when you see a light flashing on the audience shot, you're like, oh, now I'm feeling it with my eyes.
let's talk about that a little bit because so the this tape that it had to have come from MTV. It had to have. It had 7 songs pro shot on there, and these 7 songs was exactly the same as what ended up on Kissology. So basically, this was just shot from the screen. So this VHS tape included Deuce, King of the Nighttime World, Do You Love Me, Calling Dr. Love, Cold Gin with like the worst VHS style effects. Trying to it looks terrible. Christine 16 and Love Gun. So I thought this was great that I actually had pro shot footage of Tiger Stadium because it was such an important show. Obviously, the performance isn't great, but I was so excited when the rap sheet for Kissology came out because I thought that the Kissology version was going to be a different version. I thought it was going to be shot because Wayne Isham shot a bunch of stuff on film for this show, which was going to be used for the Shout Out Loud video. But you can see little clips of this show on VH1 Beyond the Makeup. You see little clips from Tiger Stadium. Even you see clips of this in the Kistery documentary that was shot. But this little 7-song pro shot is the exact same shit that ended up on Kissology in 2007, where almost every song is completely black in between songs because the screens were off at the time. So why would they have video on there? And you're right. Watching these, it does not look impressive. Doesn't look impressive at all. Even
But the
more so,
quality on that VHS is actually better than on Kissology in terms
yeah,
of clarity, which is
yeah.
shocking.
It's so shocking. Like where? So first of all, why was MTV given just the first 7 songs? Even if they were like, how did these 7 songs pro shot end up mixed in with all this MTV footage? How'd that even happen? Who knows? Did the band give that to them? What? Who knows? Because I'll tell you something. Watching all those MTV Week in Rock clips from around this time, none of this stuff was used. All of their footage was used of their cameras, whether it was in the pit or the soundboard. Not this professional shot stuff. But yes, you're right. These 7 songs are better than the version that ended up on Kissology. I hate to sound like a broken record because we shit on Kissology quite a bit. Because it
Yeah,
wasn't just.
I won't be shitting on it because that's the version that I that's my watch, that's my viewing copy.
Mhm. Well, yes, it's the most complete version. It's still missing songs, but it just looks the Kissology version visually. It looks green, like there's so much green in it. Like maybe when they would put it in, they didn't adjust the tint properly. I wasn't impressed how it looked visually. The VHS I had 20 years ago looked better than Kissology. How's that even possible? So I thought that was silly. I thought that was just complete and utter silliness. But you're also able to see complete songs from the pit. You can see Deuce and King of the Nighttime World from the pit, and
And
you hear the
the
nervous
God of
voice.
Thunder angle is
Yes.
really cool from that MTV tape.
Hmm.
There's a couple of things. Deuce and King are great because again, you're getting it from the pit, so you're getting angles that you're not seeing when you're
Hmm.
watching the Kissology, and you're certainly not seeing from the way in the back audience shots.
Hmm.
One of the audience cams also kind of hidden, so it's obscured somewhat. But you also get one of the coolest things I've seen, and that is the Elvis walk.
Yes, yes, that is cool. We've seen this a couple different times. It is included on the Second Coming video, which that's the band shot that on film. Who knows what happened to it now? So you see that, but then you see them pulling up on the golf carts, 2 guys in the golf cart, and what do you hear Doc say? Guys together for the walk. Guys together for the walk. Because he knew that getting the 4 of them together to walk together was a big deal. And it's very, very cool to see that. And it's cool to see them walk up the steps. And as they're walking up the steps, the low bass note starts. And you just hear the crowd like erupt. It must have been so cool to be there and hear that at the time.
But here we are, just a couple of geeks geeking out on Kiss videos from 28 years ago, and we get to enjoy it now just as much as, probably back then. Maybe we appreciate it a little bit more now from the path that's been traveled since. I also like the MTV reporter trying to do her report in the middle of a Kiss concert.
Yes. Yes. I mean, that was popular at the time, but you can clearly tell, what she wanted to say, but she couldn't get it out because the fans are they've definitely been overserved by that point in the night. Because it was a long day. I mean, Alice in Chains went on before Kiss. It was the last Alice in Chains show ever. No, it wasn't Alice in Chains that opened up that show.
STP.
Stone Temple Pilots, I'm so sorry. So that was the last Stone Temple Pilots show because Weiland went to jail again after that. Alice in Chains was after, right?
I'm sorry, I really don't care about opening acts on this
tour.
tour.
No, it was supposed to be STP, and then it ended up being Alice in Chains and Sponge. So there were two other bands that went on before that. So by the time you get to Shout Out Loud, which I know isn't really late in the set, but the audience at that point was pretty sauced. It was summertime in Detroit. Kiss was back. Everyone was over-serving themselves. 100%.
Yeah, you say something about the audience, and that's something else that really kind of jumps out at me throughout the video, whether it's the MTV report or, a lot of the audience shots through the pro shot, or the screenshot, I should say, the screen feed, just show an audience that is so different than the audiences have become today.
Mm-hmm. What's two things that you notice? What's two things that you notice in the audience?
I don't see any jangling jewelry from rich people up front.
Okay, the two things I noticed, this is obviously of the time, because it's 96. No cell phones, obviously, which is great.
Yeah.
But I see them constantly passing chairs because they were set up on the field. So, like, once the lights went out, everyone must have pushed forward, and they were just, like, juggling these chairs out of the way. So you just see folding chairs, like, just being ejected the whole time. So, one of the other things that ended up on this tape, and I wasn't able to find this in versions after that, and I sadly have lost the VHS tape, but there were a lot of reports from Much Music, which was a Canadian music station at the time, and they were interviewing fans after the show, and there was a guy that was like, "Man, I fought hard to stay alive down front, but I made it, but I fought hard." So it must have been just mayhem down front.
You see it a couple of times. The camera comes and someone in the audience sees the camera coming and they're like up, climbing up over people. Mm-hmm. And they're all sweaty and tangled and beer stained. And
I'm looking at them like, guys, where's your shirt? It's not that hot. I get it's hot, but it's not that hot. Put your shirt on. What's going on here? I never got that. I never got to that point where, like, I went to a show and I was like, I'm going to take my shirt off. That's how hot it is. I've never been that guy. I'll never be that guy.
So I leave it to Paul Stanley.
So
some better hands that way.
Yeah, but even like I've seen the other people, it's mayhem. It's mayhem. But you do see quite a bit of the audience of this. Nocturne Video is the one that did the video for most of the reunion era Kiss concerts. So it's very, very apparent to me because Nocturne Video did not shoot the Weenie Roast. Nocturne Video's first gig was this. It was the productions and it was this. So it's very apparent to me that they're still feeling out how to film the show. There's some key points that are missed or some key things that are missed. I mean, it could have been just because of how rabid the crowd and the fans were. But you could clearly tell that once you get on the same collection, Kissology Volume 3, they also include the Madison Square Garden from July 27th. You can clearly tell that not only is the band more relaxed, but the crew is more relaxed. The crew is more relaxed too. So we talked about how this multi-cam pro shot, this has been out for 20 plus years. The first 6 songs, Juice, King, Do You Love Me, Dr. Love, Cold Gin, Cruising 16, Love Gun. And then in 2007, Kissology released an almost complete Tiger Stadium, which is exactly what the previous version was. But there's still omitted some songs. So omitted from the Kissology version were 2000 Man, New York Groove, Beth, Detroit Rock City, and Black Diamond. And who knows why they decided to admit those songs? Probably 2000 Man and New York Groove because they didn't want to pay publishing to the the co-writers of those songs.
Well,
And
why would they for New York Groove? They included the VMA version from later that year, so they may have thought, why would we double up when we've got the video, the Brooklyn Bridge one is way better.
are you really asking why Kiss didn't double up on something? Think of all the compilations we have. Here's another Kiss compilation. You don't have the songs in this order, so I don't think that was a concern of them because how many times is Detroit Rock City on this set? You know,
Yep.
maybe so because later on in the set, they do the entire um, Dodger Stadium show from the Psycho Circus tour, which was your first Kiss show.
I
Um,
think I think to answer your question, I think it's pure business. Why, if they have it, and again, it comes back to if they have it, because come on, they don't have half the things that fans wish they did.
that's right.
If they had it, they may have been thinking, well, we're putting it on again. Let's keep it so that we can always do a standalone release later, and then the
Yeah,
fans will pay for it again. And this time it'll have one more song because come on, we're suckers and we do buy it over and over and over.
yeah, that's what I mean. I bought 3 versions of Kissology Volume 3 the day it came out. I honestly thought that starting with Kissology 2, the reason for the omitted songs or the reason for the incomplete shows was because after it was all said and done, they were going to put out the full shows. And they haven't released vintage clips since 2007. 2007. It's 2024. It's almost 20 years since they've released a vintage concert on video.
And then did they get releases from Ace and Peter for the release of those? Were they covered, or where? What was the state of the Penridge lawsuit at that time? I don't know the answers. I'm just theorizing. I'm spitballing. I mean, it
Yeah,
could
but
be anything.
remember,
It could be as easy as, well, Peter and Ace aren't flavor of the day today, so edit them out.
well, and I'll just briefly mention this, but they hated Peter Chris so much at this time that they edited him out of the Dodger Stadium concert. We lost Peter's camera. No, you didn't. You edited the guy out because you didn't want him in there. So, um, but yeah, it's interesting that those songs were omitted. I thought for certain they should have included Detroit Rock City from Detroit Rock City. You know,
That's a pretty serious omission, but by the same token, so is Beth, and that I can see being personal.
yeah, but the A songs are omitted too. 2000 Man. 2000 Man wasn't a staple during the reunion tour. It wasn't there very often. If we're looking at, I'm going to log on to kissconcerthistory.com because you can get all of your Kiss concert history facts all throughout there, and
For
going
free.
live for free actually. So if we're looking at setlist archive, 2000 Men wasn't performed that much throughout the reunion tour. So I thought that would have been cool for them to include that because it wasn't the standard song.
Okay, well, I choose to believe there must be a logical and meaningful reason for it being so, not some nefarious conspiracy theory. How about that?
Dude, the
But I'm
truth is
wrong.
out there. The truth is out there. I want to believe. That's the poster I'm going to get. It's I want to believe, but instead of the UFO, it's going to be Gene. I want to believe. Um, but yeah, the audience version includes all the songs, which is cool. It was cool at the time just to give just a super just 30,000 foot view of the set list. It was very cool at the time to hear "Watching You" again by the original band. I know they had started doing that on the Revenge tour, so it wasn't as cool. We mentioned on previous episodes about "Do You Love Me," so "Do You Love Me" being back in the set list, that was a big deal because that had been played in so long. Christine 16 was cool to hear. Shock Me Again was cool to hear because that hadn't been there in a while. King of the Nighttime World hadn't been there in a while. Obviously, they played that in the 90s. They played it at Blaze, no, not Blaze Fest. What the hell's the name of that show? Foundations Forum in '93. They played it there. Um, the songs that I really wanted to hear were 2000 Man, New York Groove, Beth, Black Diamond, Rock Bottom was resurrected. So, and that didn't last the entire tour. And then, of course, the Let Me Go Rock and Roll was back too. And classic arrangements were back at this point too. Because they had strayed away from some of the arrangements of the songs when guys like Bruce Kulick was in the band, because Bruce was adding his flavor to it. But now the classic arrangements were back. The classic parts were back. And this was the blueprint for everything that came after. It really, really was.
Something that strikes me as somewhat interesting when you think about Kiss, we think about a bombastic stage performance, a impressive stage show with all these elements. Looking at the pyro cue sheet, side one of this page takes us all the way up to Rock and Roll All Night.
Wow.
Side two, which is also full, is the last 3 songs, excluding Beth, which doesn't have much pyro.
It has the most pyro, actually.
So it struck me when I'm watching, and again, watching the Kissology video primarily, is that you don't notice the production elements.
Mm-mm.
They're really hidden from you and anemic, right down to Ace's guitar, Rockets being unimpressive. Deuce, you get your first taste of concussions, and you can kind of hear them on the monitor feed. Just pops. They're very dull. Might as well be someone slapping someone else on the back a couple of rows away. And then that's it until Love Gun.
Yes, and you can't hear it in the in Tiger Stadium, but it was really bad at the Weenie Roast as far as timing those concussions. At the end, it's still really bad here. Instead of going like da 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 da, it's like da 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 da. It's so bad. It's so bad. Something else I'm glad that they fixed, because when I was watching Deuce from the Weenie Roast, the firehouse alarm starts going off. So like you hear the play Deuce here. It's almost through the whole song. Like, dude, turn that thing off. So that always makes me laugh when that's on there, because everyone was probably so stressed out at that point. So, but the coolest thing is, and I don't know why this was initially placed during Do You Love Me, but the amp walls were down, and then during Do You Love Me, they like during the beginning beat of Do You Love Me, they start coming up. I was like, what why is that during Do You Love Me? It seems odd. It was later placed at the beginning of King, so when Ace was doing his guitar feedback, that's when the speakers were coming up, which is a super powerful element. So I love that they did it there. So, but even at the time, Bill Aucoin said that their stage production looked bland and blank. Yeah. I didn't think that. This is one of my favorite stages. Seeing the amps come up, I think that's super cool, especially during King of the Nighttime World, which is where it belongs. I thought it was I thought it was cool. Some of the silly parts about the show, the drum riser, it ended up being very, very low to the ground. There ended up being floodlights that were put in the drum riser later on in the tour, but for the beginning part of the tour, what was on the drum riser? Fucking little lame spinning mirrors. You could clearly see them during Rock and Roll Night. They're spinning, and I was like, who noted, like, who thought of that? What this stupidest thing in the world? It's so unimpressive. And then obviously when the drums went up, the actual cats that were used at that point in time, they looked like Toys R Us versions of the cats. Just look soft and unimpressive.
Why don't we blast through the songs? Because I've got some notes on each one.
Me too.
Starting with Deuce, my all-time favorite song. My comments on that are: the intro and the stage curtain drop does not do justice to the moment. But I was not there, and I'm watching the Kissology video.
Yes, you almost don't even see the curtain drop during the Kissology video. There's actually a much better shot of the curtain drop. You have to watch during that VH1 special, Beyond the Makeup. There's a camera where we're shot and the curtains dropping. That's from Tiger Stadium. That would have been cool to see in there. And that was shot on film. Like, where is this film? Like, this is stuff that the fans would want to see. But the band almost derailed during Deuce, right after
Yeah.
the guitar solo. Peter and Chris
Oh,
just
yeah. They come out hot though, all
thank
guns
God.
blazing, and then they get wonky.
Yeah, but thank God they were able to keep it together, or they were to keep it back together at that point. But it almost fell apart that first song.
And I always felt this, they transition into King of the Nighttime World nicely and settle down. But as someone who was listening to that audio version back in 96, there was such a contrast in King of the Nighttime World by the reunited group versus what I'd been listening to prior to this, which were the 95, 94 shows. And just the difference in power
Mm-hmm.
is palpable. And that's kind of the thing that always hits me the most when I'm listening to some of these reunion shows is it goes back to that initial reaction to the reunion being announced, that some thought it'd be a death knell for the band artistically and that they'd become trapped by it, and others who wanted to relive their youth or ute.
Or experience it for the first time. They never experienced it. So I thought it was odd that Paul spoke in between Deuce and King, because obviously that was moved down to before Do You Love Me later on in the tour. But I thought Do You Love Me was a better performance. There's still some mess ups with the drum parts at the end of the song.
Oh, the end.
Peter flip-flops
The
the beat
end is
around.
just like dull,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of ambles to an end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't have any notes on Do You Love Me. I thought maybe the intro and the start of the song could have been tightened up a little bit. I mean, obviously that did get tightened up later on in the tour. But I have no notes on Do You Love Me.
Yeah,
Unimpressed.
I just say notably dull song ending. Pause, then stop, and that's just what strikes me. But again, it's a band, shaking off the rust for real. So that hadn't been done at
This
Weenie.
this ending of Do You Love Me, I thought was the guitar harmony at the end. They claimed this was originally recorded for Destroyer. This was like the first new Kiss composition by the original band since 1979. So that's kind of cool, in my opinion.
And now I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that.
The da na 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 na. They never had done that before, and they claimed it was left off Destroyer. But as we know, we've listened to the Destroyer box set many times. Nothing like that appears on there.
They've
Call-
claimed a lot of things.
They have. I'm a reporter. The man is a journalist. If anybody knows what that's from, put it in the comments. Calling Dr. Love. Too
Yeah.
early in the set list.
Way too early.
Too early in the set list. And then the song I skipped the most, Cold Gin. Yes, this was cool because Ace did get to sing the second verse of this. I know that people consider this an Ace song because Ace wrote it. It was very, very cool to hear Ace sing this early in the set, but I don't know. This song drags on, in my opinion.
The camera effect is seizure inducing. Cold Gin has never been one of my songs that I enjoy particularly live.
No.
Over the past, it's just become it's become water torture.
It's dull.
Yeah.
It's very dull.
It doesn't have that energy that it had in the 70s. It's just lost all its panache. It's past its sell-by date. It's got mold around the edges. And that camera effect just makes it even more.
It's there here. It's on the New York City show. It's even there when we get down to the Toledo show. This was like the effect that they used. Let's make it look like a CRTV with a bad frame rate. Come on, man. It's so bad.
Yeah.
It's so fucking
the frame rate is actually very uncomfortable. But again, we're watching it on a small screen versus a big screen far away from it. So in terms of its purpose and functionality, I bet it didn't look very good there either.
Probably not. Christine 16. This is our first not common song. This song wasn't on the tour a lot. Gene still can't get the words right.
And they still can't get the start right because Paul's like, let's start the next one, please. Come on, campers.
Yeah, let's start the next one, please. And then I don't know, this This song was never as cool as it was in the 70s.
No.
You know, and I mean, I loved it when they started doing it on the Rock the Nation tour, and they did it again in Japan in 2006. That was fresh. But this, I don't know. I never really liked this band doing it. Next up is Love Gun. Again, way too early in the set. I guess they were trying to mimic the 1977 show by putting Love Gun this early. But something I noticed at the very, very end of the song, pyro cues aside, but there's a cameras on Peter at the end of the song, and he ends it, and he's just like, yeah, like he was like proud that he played the song very well, because let me tell you, they really, really messed the song up with the Winnie roast, the intro. So maybe he was proud that they didn't mess it up. So maybe that's why he was so excited at the end of the song.
Who knows? Maybe it was one that he was battling with, to get back into that groove on. One of the things that throughout this whole show, this whole tour again, is the drum sound is not good. And particularly on this audio, on the Kissology one, it's not quite pudding pan sounding drums, but they are not powerful or dynamic.
Mm-mm.
They don't match the bombast. And yeah, there's a certain amount that comes, I'm sure, down to triggering and a change in the technique. So obviously it's not 1977 anymore, and they want to preserve him physically as much as possible for a long run, but they don't sound good drums. The sound of the drums isn't good.
He's barely touching those things, man. He's barely
couldn't they have double mic'd them or multi-streamed it or anything to make them bigger?
I just think that, Eric Carr used triggers. Eric Singer used triggers.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people that hate triggers don't know what they're used for. They're used to pick up the vibrations of the drum, and then that vibration is used to make the drum sound the same way every single night.
Yeah, consistency.
Yeah. So it's great when you're using in-ear monitors, but I just think the sound that they used was not good. Maybe it sounded different when you were in the arena, because I don't notice them as much when listening to audience recordings on this tour. You notice them when you're listening to the professional ones, but when you listen to the audience versions, they're less noticeable.
You know what I like the most about Love Gun? There's no "I'm coming out here."
Oh yeah, that's right. That wasn't there until March
this predates the flying and the audience participation thing, which again, when it was new and fresh, was cool and something different. And after about the 900th time, it gets a little bit old. So
here it comes.
It was just nice that it wasn't there. It's like there is no mini stage, there is no zip line, and hallelujah.
What I was always hoping is when he got in the zip line, I was like, man, I hope he gets stuck again, because that would be cool to see versus just him coming out there. I'm like, man, if he gets stuck, he's gonna be so pissed. And like I was there for that journey. I saw him get stuck one time.
Just invents its own Spinal Tap possibilities.
He was pissed.
Lead singer getting stranded on his zip.
All right. Next up is the single of the night, "Shout It Out Loud." I thought this. I guess Peter just decided he wanted to start the song, didn't want to count it. Shout Out Loud. He just starts playing the drums, and the band's like, "Oh fuck, we better come in." So that was my only note of the song.
My note is really good solo. And there are some nice audience cut shots here. And my comments here are, it's better to see the wild animals and the wealthy stiffs with the selfie sticks.
That is true. That is very true. They were wild at this show. I'm going to group these next two songs together because Watching You goes right into Firehouse. I think overall Watching You was a weak point of the tour for me. It was cool to hear the song, but I thought they played it too slow. This one needed to be picked up a little bit. And then it goes into Firehouse, which listening to them sing Firehouse, they don't sound like Kiss singing this song, this night at least. They had the part, "You never leave her, but you know you should." And then they're the way they say "should," especially in this one, it sounds like they're out of, I don't know, for something about the way they sang Firehouse this night didn't sound like Kiss to me.
There's a weird vocal in there, and I don't know who's singing it. I don't know if it's one of the four guys, because it's a really different sounding voice. There's a little vocal flub at the end of the second verse that's on all the versions. You can hear it clearly, obviously on the monitor mixes of Kissology and the MTV stuff, and I have no idea where that comes from. But Firehouse is a real letdown.
Yeah.
The flare effect overlays on the Kissology version would have been, again, functionally make sense for a screen in a stadium. But the flaming is terribly framed. I don't see fog. Um, boo. But watching you, my comments on that were really short, where I love it. But the weak drums let down an otherwise powerful performance. And again, it's just where the drum sound really doesn't support. The drums are the foundation,
Mm.
or should be.
It should be, yeah. So we got Strutter, which wasn't
Oh, 2000 Man.
Oh, I was going off of the MTV. I was going off of the Kissology sets. My bad. Let me get back to the full set list here. So 2000 Man follows this. I read, I think it's an okay performance, but I read in an interview that the reason why it was dropped was because they didn't want a 5 minute long song on here. This song, it does drag, but they did it because they did it on Unplugged, and that's probably why they did it here tonight.
Well, they should have done the English single edit. 3 minutes and 40 seconds or something.
Yeah, I never loved 2000 Man. I know they did it on the Dynasty tour and then again on the Unmasked tour, but it pales in comparison to Shock Me. It really does.
Yeah,
it really
sure.
does.
Maybe it's just too much Ace in one set.
Too much Ace. Well, no, I don't think it was too much Ace. I just think that, perhaps Talk to Me would have been better, but Peter Criss couldn't have played Talk to Me at this point.
You've got him singing some of Cold Gin, New York Groove, Shock Me, obviously, and contributing heavily in Rock and Roll All Night. So, I like it. I didn't think it was,
Ace was back.
Too much. Yeah.
Ace was back. All right, so picking back up with the Pro Shot version, Strutter. I like that they included this song, and again, the speed on this one is a little concerning me. I wanted it just a little bit quicker. I want it to sound a little closer to Cobo Hall 76 than it does here. But this is a song that I've missed in the set list, and this, after the reunion tour, it didn't really make an appearance permanently on a tour again until 2008, 2009, when they started doing a Live 35. But this is a song I've always missed. And then they played the last show with no Strutter. So,
no, it's the one I've been screaming for. But that nasty camera effect comes back on the Kissology version, the frame rate shift, I'm going to call it. But you know what song it replaced? Originally, going to the set list, She was up in this slot.
Which didn't make an appearance till the very next tour, and then was dropped right after it was played.
And here we go. Shock Me.
Shock Me.
Kaleidoscope.
I like the song. I think the guitar solo, just every guitar solo from here on out, is just too long. It's too long. It's like a 5-minute guitar solo. That's too many minutes of guitar.
When you think of the shows that we've, already featured in this podcast, Ace's solo is very nice and concise. There's enough of it and not too much that it keeps things moving nicely, but it's all a very cool supporting element. Here, I'm more entertained by the technical issues. And Ace, popping off with, something had to fucking go wrong in typical Ace fashion. So it is still a fun solo, but I think you're right.
It's long.
Just too much.
You know what I'm glad is missing from this show? Because it's there on the Weenie Roast show, which was a bonus on Kissology Volume 3. This is for Ace. What's missing from Ace here that he had on Weenie Roast?
God, I don't know. I watched that, and
here's the thing: you're never going to be able to unsee this now, because once I noticed it, I could never unsee it. He had a fucking straw sticking out of his costume, so like there'd be points in the show where he'd just be like trying to drink from this. Listen, you're never gonna be able to unsee that. And then like I see pictures, so I see that fucking straw sticking right out of there. Like, what was the purpose of that? why was that there? Who said that? I was like, yeah, man, looks great. Get on stage. I'd have been like, get that fucking straw out of your costume, man. You look ridiculous. So gladly that's missing here.
In-flight refills.
But where was like, did he have like a bag or something? Was it like a reverse colostomy bag where like it wasn't full of shit, it was full of like water? Like why would you have that? Why would you have that? Well, he was at least at the beginning, the first, he was at least sober the first month of the tour. Whatever happened after on there, whatever it is. But this first month there was at least sober. But man, go back. You're never going to be able to.
I'm gonna have to go watch that. I think that's the only bonus disc I have left.
There's a part where like you see him, he's like, that's where he's trying to drink. I'm like, dude, it's so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad. Okay, so after this very, very long guitar solo, we have another guitar solo. We have the intro to Rock Bottom. I actually like this song. The Pro Shot version does not do this song justice because there's a disco ball that came in, and especially you don't really notice it in the stadium.
Madison Square Garden is the keeper for that for that bit.
Yes, but even seeing it, because I mean, unfortunately, by the time I saw them in December of '96, the song was long dropped and replaced by "Come On and Love Me." But you don't get this in a stadium. You don't get to see that disco ball effect, which was very of the time, because in the 90s we were hearkening back to what happened in the 70s. So it's a cool effect lost in this.
Yeah, I love the intro. It's great to see that massive double neck make its reappearance because it's and again, it's a classic element, but I think they play it pretty well. And to just see the two guitarists of Kiss together playing that, it's an absolutely gorgeous piece of music anyway.
You mean Bruce and Tommy together? The two guitarists of Kiss, Bruce Gillett, time there. I'm kidding.
No. On this day that I was watching it, it was probably my favorite moment of the show, as is when they kick into the song itself and Gene's rumbling bass enters, because it's just a monstrous, deep rumble going on there. I love it.
Not a great performance of God of Thunder. I feel like the ponytail on Gene's head is too big, and it's sort of like I noticed it, like it almost looks like this towards the end of the song. Yeah, it just.
Or is it Jerry from the Misfits who had that?
Yeah, Jerry Only is the one that had that. But for some reason, the whole arrangement of the song doesn't really work here. There's no drum fill crescendo into the vocals. It appears later on in the tour. And then the drum solo, man. So when I did Alive 96, which drew from a lot of these shows, I sped up the drum solo 10% to make it, because it's so slow. And then
get it over with more quickly.
Yeah, get it over with more quickly. This is way too long. The drum solo is like way too long. And then the silliest part with the drum solo is like he's just like testing out his cymbals, like he's at Sam Ash or something. I test him out, like dude, come on, it's way too long. Cut that shit down. And make the feature of the drum solo, something cool. Make like the sparklers go off. It's way too long, man. Way, way, way too long.
Yeah, my notes. Colors of the video suck here, and I already said it earlier that it's a much better camera angle looking up Gene's leg from the pits. That's way better framed. The song, the drum solo, everything is just missing a bit of the good old ultraviolence. It's not a very good performance either. It's not brooding. It's turgid, and I hate this. I hate the sound of the drums here. It's flat, no resonance, dull.
So the Pro Shot version skips this song, but New York Groove is next on the audience shot. This was my favorite song in this time. I loved this song.
Yeah. What a great song it was, and it was also one that worked very well with this lineup. Had to be there.
I agree. This was a great song. Then we go to Let Me Go Rock and Roll. These next couple songs are just a mess, and you can clearly tell that even before the bass solo part of the song and even from the bass solo or the bass feature rather, when the band kicks back in, they're all not in sync. They're all missing cues. Nobody really knows when the parts change. This song's a mess, just a mess. And it survived. How did this song survive the entire tour? So not only was it towards the end of this show, then it was like towards the middle, and then it was on the last stage. This song was third. How did this song survive the tour? This song's a mess.
Because it's a great song. The camera work does justice to illustrating the frantic tick tick tock of the tempo.
Oh, come on.
I dig it.
Not me, man. Not me. And if you thought "Let Me Go Rock and Roll" was bad, wait till you hear "100,000 Years." Oh
Yeah,
my God!
that
All
was
those
not good.
all those guitar licks, in between that, just there. Almost every guitar lick is blown, and even the "Do You Feel All Right" part, that is just oof. It's bad. It's really bad. You could
But it
tell that
didn't
they.
go on as long as it does in recent years.
That's true. I think the longest it ever went on was the Rock the Nation tour, where he was doing the fist move. He was like, "Yeah, it was just so long. It was so long. I was so happy when they dropped this song in the mid 2000s. I was so glad when it was gone for a little while. Then it came back.
Well, this
This
replaced
performance
another
was not
song.
good.
This What was supposed to be in this song slot was
Nothing to
something
lose.
I
No.
Stole Your Love.
Well, that did make an appearance later on in the tour. Thankfully,
Later on, yeah, but I love that song, and
me
I would
too.
take I Stole Your Love over 100,000 Years any day of the week.
Any single day.
But that's just because it's been overplayed in recent memory. So
Mhm. Mhm. All right, so now, unfortunately, we're getting to a part where a lot of, well, I did, excuse me, I do forget that Rock and Roll Night closed out the set list, the initial set list here, so that's present here, and even still, the call and answer sections, they're not as strong as they ended up being ultimately, just because the band just was nervous. And I always think it was weird that Rock and Roll Night closed out the set and didn't close out the night like it did later on. So after this, the encores are missing from the Pro Shot version.
yeah, but it ends on a very poignant note. Paul's rap is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Thanking the Detroit audience. It's hard to equate this all the years later from Madison Square Garden to being an important moment, but that it was an important moment, and there was a lot of cash at play.
And there's so much less confetti. So much less confetti.
Yeah, all the elements are less, but again, we're blinded by 5 years of End of the Road as well, which really, started out at least with all of those elements kind of magnified for one last time. But back reunion, what
You said one last time.
one last time.
But later on the tour, it definitely got. Actually, if you want to see the best version of Rock and Roll Night, it was shot in Atlanta. It was shot.
Yeah.
It was shown on Japanese TV, and there was an abridged version that was shown on Dick Clark's Rock on New Year's Eve. This was not from the Meadowlands. This was shot in Atlanta in October '96. Fantastic version, fantastically shot, fantastically captured. And this actually ended up being the scratch track for the Cup Crazy song, if you can believe that.
Yeah, the Atlanta video is something else. Yeah,
Yeah, the Atlanta video, which I wish we would have gotten a higher quality pro shot version of the full Atlanta show, because we have the version where it was shot from Peter and the one pit cam, and then we have the far away camera shots, which is just not very good, unfortunately. Very generated, very at least third generation, maybe even fourth generation. But yeah, so not great performance here. But if you want to see Rock and Roll performed well, Atlanta is shot very well. And then obviously later on in the Schizology set, you have Brooklyn Bridge. But Brooklyn Bridge is not a good representation of the rest of the tour. Atlanta is. So then we have the encores. I'm just going to quickly go through these: Beth, Detroit, and Black Diamond. I don't like the new Black Diamond ending. What do you think about that?
again, it's wrapped up in all the elements of half a page of pyro. Um, you know, it's a strong finish to what must have been make or break day of whether this was going to work. They don't know yet until they really wet their beaks if it's going to happen. I think it's an excellent finale. Is it perfect? No, but I'm, taking it for what it is. And again, now we're into audience land
Mm-hmm.
to finish watching the show.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty good.
It's interesting to note that the very next show they close with Black Diamond. So this is the very next show they close with Black Diamond, and then we get down to I'm just scanning through these tour dates because there was a time where they flipped it. Yeah, they don't flip it to Rock and Roll Night until Houston, which is a handful of shows into the tour. So you had Black Diamond close the first couple of shows, which I think is a great finale in the 70s, but I think that Rock and Roll Night was the stronger ending, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But then you get to see the bombast of everything, because not only are they going up on those risers, they're actually going out in the audience. I think the effect is lost in a large stadium. Kiss is an arena band, so for them to see those risers where they went up and then they went out into the crowd was very, very cool. But it's the effect is kind of lost here.
Yeah, they really stuck to that paradigm on this tour. Tiger Stadium was an outlier in the U.S. run for being outdoors. But for the
Mhm.
most part, they stayed indoors or stayed after dark, as they did for Brooklyn Bridge, because the show really, exactly as he says, works the best within that kind of arrangement. Um,
Yeah,
Kiss was never a stadium band.
never. There were some brushes with stadiums on the Destroyer Tour, which we talked about, like Atlanta Braves Stadium, Anaheim Stadium, Roosevelt Stadium, but they're not a stadium band. They've never been a stadium band. Seeing those effects so far away are just not. They're an arena band. The band looks the best in an arena.
Yep, and they sound the best in an arena as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
But I'm glad I've gotten to see them in clubs. I've seen them in stadiums. I've seen them in arenas. I've seen them in theaters. I've seen them in, I think, just about every possible venue, which isn't bad considering I didn't see them until 1998.
I didn't see them in a club. I saw them on the cruise, which would have been the theater. I saw another theater show on the Alive 35. They played a casino. It was like a 1,200 seater. Couldn't believe that I was seeing Kiss in a place like that.
Yeah.
Did I see a club show? I didn't see the John Varvatos show.
You didn't go up to any of the tribal shows in, say, Wisconsin or Minnesota or any of those areas, or where was the Canadian ones as well? 2007. Those were.
Mm-mm. No, but I saw that same casino in 2008. The same casino they did in 2007.
Yeah, because they did an acoustic one down south. I didn't go to that one. They had
Oh yeah,
Chumash
yeah, 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 yeah. That
2006.
yeah. So Chumash, they did Chumash right after Japan in '06, and I had just come back from Japan, so I didn't go to Chumash. I should have skipped Japan. And I should have went to Chumash because that would have been cool.
Yep, and then they'd had some other ones scheduled in 2006 that they had to bump to 2007.
Mhm.
I don't remember the details now, but
It's in the Kiss on Tour book, so get yours today.
yeah, no,
So
fun show
final,
though.
yeah. I was gonna say it's a fun show to watch. You cannot argue the historical importance of this show. The band is nervous. The band is shaking off that rust. But this was an important performance and an important tour because this tour gave us Kiss up until 2023.
Yeah, while we have the shouted out loud video as kind of the sole monument to this moment, there should have always been a standalone release around Tiger Stadium, more so, I think, than there ever was. But I think my final words on it is,
There isn't one.
well, okay.
Alive 96, man.
hmm Yeah, an official one
Okay, you're right. Official.
on LP, DVD. Well, DVDs are
It
gone
would have
the
been
wind.
at the time. Can you believe it would have been? It would have been CD, cassette, and VHS.
Yeah.
That's what it would have been.
Yeah, because MTV Unplugged didn't come out on DVD for years until after.
It came out. Yeah, it came out in '96 on DVD. Just very limited, very difficult to get.
I had it, and I sold it when it got to $100 on eBay. I was like, "Ooh, I'll take the $100, please. I'll buy some more shit." Yeah, Detroit. The magic is in the moment, not the performance, unless you were there.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And if you were there, let us know.
Yeah, if you were there, and you also saw them in the '70s, would love to know your thoughts on how it lived up in your mind to what you were anticipating and expecting versus what you got, and if you can separate that from all the years that followed, because we were on bonus time with Kiss, I think, after '96. Obviously, they had Peter and Ace locked in for 5 years contractually, but things changed quite drastically after '97.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But this is the moment. This is the beginning. This is
Great
the
time.
foundation of 28 years of additional touring, probably $500 million or more in gross gate receipts.
Yeah.
You made Gene and Paul very happy.
This
And
is
you
my
know what?
Kiss.
Yeah, and they made us very happy as well, because
Very happy.
this is the era where I saw all my shows. Here we go.
Tiger
is it.
Stadium, 6/28/90. That's it. Edit her out. That's it. No, so this is a great show. So leave your thoughts down below on this show in History, and then leave your comments as to what shows you want to see next. And until then, you may leave the Inner Sanctum until we welcome you back.
Take care, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
The most reliable concert information is on 101 WRIF.
You got the best, the hottest band in the world, Kiss!
The makeup is back on. Now the rock and roll spectacle in the only building big enough to hold it. Tiger Stadium. Friday, June 28th. With a very special guest, Stone Temple Pilots. Stone Temple Pilots. Now listen carefully. Tickets for the Kiss spectacle go on sale this Saturday morning at 9 at Tiger Stadium box office, all Ticketmaster outlets are charged by phone. Friday, June 28th in Tiger Stadium. Brass Ring presents Kiss.